wish you'd understand. I just wish that God had a better plan. I'm so confused. I need a redo. Inside of me that's begging and begging and pleading. I just wanna feel free. I just wanna feel lovely. I'm surrounded by love that's in pain. Can I wipe your tears away? Please don't hurt for me. I hate that it's for me. It's for me.
Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast, where I am trying to spread awareness about what it is like to live with chronic disease. I've been living with MS for the last 28 years. I talk about my journey as well as the journey of other chronic disease warriors all over the world, just to try to help people understand what it is like going through that diagnosis, the mental health part of it, the family part, the career part. Today, I am sitting down with an MSer just south of me down in the state of Kentucky. CMae was diagnosed with her MS in 2011, but she started her journey a couple of years before that, and she's going to explain all that. The really cool part about this interview that I'm going to enjoy is that CMae was diagnosed with her MS later in life. She was in her 50s, and I think that that is an age group that is kind of scary. You know, you're already into your career, and I just love the way that she attacked her disease. She's been doing this since 2011, but please welcome to the podcast, CMae. How you doing, CMae?
Hey, thank you. Thanks for the invite, and I really appreciate it. I was 54 when I was diagnosed. The second time, the first time was in 2009, and I woke up. I'd been a karate instructor. I was a black belt certified, yada, yada, yada. But woke up, couldn't see out of my left eye. I had dropped foot with my right side, and my right arm was out too. And it felt like, you know, how you have a body part that goes to sleep on you.
Yep.
Well, that's what it felt like. I thought I was having a stroke.
Right.
So I go to a doctor, and they send me to this quack, right? Well, this quack, he had a little machine, like a probe. It wasn't the needle probe that you do with nerve tests, but it was like an electric, almost like a taser. And he was shocking body parts on me, and it hurts. And I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
But then he says, well, we're all done now. And he gets this wicked grin on his face. He turned around and shocked me again and laughed. And I said, hey, I thought you said we were all done. And he says, we are. And then he shocked me again. And well, me being who I am, I grabbed him by his tie, and I grabbed his hand that had the probe in it. And I said, I'm going to give you all the cleaned up version, but you shocked me with that probe again. I'm going to put it where the sun don't shine, and ask him if he understood me. And his nose was about 2 inches away from mine, and he understood me.
Right.
And he put it in. And so I left there with a few other choice words and said, I will not be back.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. So then I went to another doctor, and he says, doctor, I use that term loosely. Whack, 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 whack. But anyway, he says, oh, you don't have MS, you need physical therapy. Now, physical therapy, I was an exercise trainer. So anyway, that fell over like a lead balloon. But I kept getting worse and worse, so I actually went to a real doctor, and they gave me a spinal tap and said, yeah, you got it. And that was December 11th of 2011. So.
And it took 2 years to get to that point, going to doctors and then just spinning you and not giving you any answers. And you had to walk away from a diagnosis, and you finally found a doctor that gave it to you. Did you even understand what MS was when you were finally told that you had multiple sclerosis, CMae?
Well, I had done some research after that one quack, but not much. I did not really realize. I knew it could turn ugly. And I do have one of the best husbands. Now, I was going through a divorce during the first diagnosis. That's always fun too. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, this husband, when we first started dating, I said, well, I've been diagnosed with this stuff. I said, do you still want to date me? And he said, Yeah, I do. I said, okay, sucks to be you. And then after we got engaged, I said, are you sure you want to do this? I said, because this stuff could turn ugly,
Yeah.
because I'd done research. And he says, yeah. And then I was undiagnosed, and I was a happy camper because I was like, yeah, I don't have that crap.
Right.
Well, surprise, surprise, I did. Yeah, bend over, here it comes again, Bohica. So, yeah, and I gave him the out. And I said, I will give you an out. This could turn ugly. I said, I won't think any worse of you. And I said, I'll let you out. And he says, you ain't going anywhere, and neither am I.
Okay.
And we're still married. We haven't killed each other off yet, so that's a good sign.
I love that, CMae. You know, and that's a hard part of the journey. You know, you're midlife, and you know you're just getting into a relationship, trying to get into a relationship, and I know how hard that is. I went through a divorce when I was in my 40s, and and it was scary. It was hard meeting people to even get them to understand this disease, and that's kudos to you that you found a guy that got it, and he's still with you to this day, and he's fighting the fight with you. Let me ask you this, CMae. What kind of a path did they take you when they did give you that diagnosis in 2011? What did they do with your DMTs? What did they put you on?
Well, the first one I was on was Rebef, where you give yourself a shot.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a needle person. I don't like needles, but I did it. They had the nice little injector, and you know, my legs looked like an assault victim, or I was breaking out on something. But anyway, I've been giving myself shots.
Yeah.
But it didn't work, you know, and I kept getting worse and worse. So then they put me on Tysabree, and I was scared half to death of that stuff. And then they said, wait a minute, you can't take it anymore. You're JC positive. So
Okay.
that was out, and then I get PML, which means your brain swells up and explodes. No, thank you. No, try to cut down on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So then they put me on Tecfidera, which they called B something or other. I can't remember now.
Briumvi?
But they put me on that. Yeah, they put me on that. That didn't work, kept getting worse and worse. Then they put me on Gilenia. That really didn't work either. So then I went for the big guns, and that was Lemtrada, which I call stem cell light.
Okay.
And Lemtrada basically wipes out your B cells in hopes that they will rebuild themselves in the cells that aren't eating your myelin sheaths.
Mm-hmm.
And I did 3 rounds. Most people just have to do 2. Not me. Oh, no, I did 3 rounds of the stuff.
Okay.
And my MRIs have come up clean, but I'm still getting worse and worse and worse.
Gotcha.
So now I'm wheelchair bound. Well, I call it scooter bound because I've got a little 3-wheel scooter I use in the house.
Yeah.
And 4-wheel, and I use outside. So, and my husband built me a ramp out here. So thankfully I live out in the country. So I just pull up and down the ramp. Unfortunately, with a 3-wheeler, it went backwards one time, and I knocked myself out colder than a cucumber on that porch.
Gotcha.
But anyhow,
You know, and
no brain.
you know, and I know we've talked about this before we recorded, you know, on just how after our diagnosis, you know, we're going to have those falls, and, you know, we just got to keep getting up and hope that we're okay. And I know that the mental health part of this disease is really like that. That's been the hardest part for me, CMae. And how did you handle it being at the point where you were in your life? I mean, you were a karate instructor, you were already like invested in a career, and to have MS just kind of take that away. How did you handle the mental health part of that?
It did. But there's always something else that you can do. There's something you could do, even if it's just sit like a bump on a pickle and look out the window. At least I can do that. I can see. You have to take what you've got left, or sometimes something new, if it arises, and take that and spin on it. Yeah, it was sad. I mean, and I'm not going to lie, I did cry when I had to quit work. Just couldn't make it up the steps anymore. And I could only type with one hand. I was a legal secretary too, and I was going back for my master's. I was also a teacher and doing substitute teaching, and I liked it. It was fun. It was good stuff.
Yeah.
And it all went kapoosh. It was gone. So I had to do something else. So I'm thankful. You start counting your blessings.
Yeah.
You're thankful you can still see.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I have use of my left hand. I'm thankful that my left leg still works. Now, sometimes the right leg will hold me up real good. Other times, like when I fall or something like that, I try and make a joke about it. because I do have to have somebody help me up. And that the first few times was unbelievably embarrassing because I was extremely independent all my life long.
Right.
And if something needed to be done, I said, okay, holding my drink, I'm going to get her done. And I would. And including up to stuff like tarring the roof. I could do that back in the day.
Yeah.
Can't now. I can recognize the roof when I see it, but
Right.
I ain't getting up there. Nope. Let the daredevil get on there. I'm on the.
You know what I love about that, CMae, is that, like, you know, as your disease progressed, you just figured it out. And I always say that, you know, MSers figure shit out. You know, it takes away one thing, you figure out how to do it another way. I know you told me before we started recording that you were right-handed, and, you know, you figured out how to use your left hand and write with your left hand because you can't use your right hand anymore. And I think that's what the attitude that we have to have. We can't quit. You know, MS is going to take this, but you still have to figure out how to enjoy life and do things a different way.
You might as well make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Now, it beats the alternative.
Yeah.
Make a joke about it. You know, sometimes my poor old husband, one time I slid when I was still able to use my cane to walk around and fell on the floor. I hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
And my shoulder still hasn't been the same since then. But, you know, he comes in, what are you doing down there? And I said, I get bored, and there was a speck on the floor and tried to get up.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You got to make
like I'm planting corn, you know.
Yeah.
It'll look like it's dirty.
Yeah, you got to make fun of it. I mean, or it's going to just eat you away, your mind. I know when I was like younger in my disease and my kids were younger, they were like 3, 4, 5 years old. Yeah, I would fall, and you know, I didn't want them to be afraid of me falling and worry about dad falling. So I would always say, you know, hey, if I fall, just make sure I'm okay. And then I want you guys to laugh, and I want you guys to grade me on my falls. So that's what they would do when they were little kids. Like I would fall and I'd be like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. And they'd be like, oh, that was a 7.9, Dad. That was an 8.5. You know, I mean, you gotta make a joke out of it, or it's just going to eat you up.
Oh yeah. I make jokes about it all the time. Well, one of the bladder control problems, you feel like an old tomcat. You got to mark your territory everywhere you go.
You know,
If you go into a building and scope out where the bathroom is first thing, okay, it's safe to go in. Yeah. And body part stiffness. As I said, your body parts are so stiff, Viagra commercials are jealous. So anyway, you know, it's one of those things, you know, like, dang, oh, why's that stiffening like that?
How did it work for you when you lost your ability to work and all that? How did it go for you with Social Security and Medicare and all that, getting signed up for that?
Well, I didn't have to. I'm paid so pitifully anyway, because I worked basically under the table for many years. But I was a legal secretary, so first time I applied, I got it.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing, because I know that there's a lot of horror stories with people that file for their disability, and it just tears me up, you know. I mean, I don't understand how they can expect people to go without any kind of medical coverage for 2 years after you're even approved. And then even like just to get approved, it takes years for some people. And that just like really aggravates me about how this system works for us.
What I tried to tell people when they're filing their papers, a lot of people, they need to get an attorney.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. But when they get as many letters from doctors as you possibly can and hit heavy on MS. Hit heavy on it like a sledgehammer. Keep hammering that out. I've got MS over and over, and all the doctors, we've got MS. She can no longer work.
Yeah.
Because I had one nurse practitioner. You could get a job, I said, as a legal secretary or as an art teacher. For some reason, they don't want an art teacher that can't draw anymore.
Yeah, right.
For some reason, there's some Joni Erickson could draw with her mouth, which I think is fascinating. I read her book years ago, and others, but I have yet to be able to teach myself how to draw with my left hand. And of course, you know, every now and then you'll have a spasm hit, and you got the line just perfect, and all of a sudden the spasm hit. Well, messed that one up.
Yeah.
But that's how when I tell people, hit heavy on it. And 9 times out of 10, they'll pass you. But yeah, I said, you got to use a sledgehammer to drill it into their dull little minds that this is what's going on here.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, CMae. I know that we met each other on TikTok, and I wasn't a social media person. I'm older. I'm 55 years old. I know you're older too. What do you think about the TikTok community where we met and the importance of that just for like our mental health and just to talk to people that get it, that understand it, that are dealing with this disease. Talk to me a little bit about how we met on the TikTok community and the importance of that with your disease.
Well, first and foremost, the TikTok algorithm is fascinating. You meet people from all walks of life, from all over the country. I think we had somebody from England on there one time,
Yeah.
and even Australia one. And she said, I'm up late. And of course, it was the middle of the day at that our time,
Yeah.
but it's fascinating. Also, too, you get to hear about other people's trials and tribulations. I'm on a lot of the MS sites on there. And it's a fascinating group of people. 99.9% of them are on the money, and they're excellent people to meet
Mm-hmm.
and to talk. And we're from all different races. Some of us are Irish. Some of us are Scotch Irish. Sometimes the people Scotch are Irish. But and we're from all over. African Americans are on there. And
Yep.
people from Spanish. Of course, I'm part Spanish, but they just never told me which part. But anyway, that part of that. And just from every place, but they all have MS is similar in a lot of ways and unlike in others. Because some people it attacks their eyes.
Right.
Some people it attacks their speech.
Right.
People it gets their mind. I met one woman physically able. She was rocking and rolling. I met her in a store, but her mind, bless her heart, she was way out there.
It's amazing. It's amazing how it affects people differently, CMae. I know that, I still have my cognitive functions relatively okay. I forget things all the time. And I know it's the EMS, but I know a lot of people that really, really struggle with the cognitive thing. And I know it's like depending on where your lesions are. My biggest problem has always been my vision. It affects my eyes. I got the optic neuritis. That's been my pain point for my whole 28 years of having this disease, and my legs now are getting worse. But I also have multi problems. I have spine issues. I've had 4 spine surgeries, and I know that you're multi-diagnosed too, because you're fibromyalgia, right?
Fibromyalgia, my thyroid's acting up, and I had breast cancer a few years ago too. So,
I mean, and that's another thing that I don't think that people understand. Okay, they know that we have MS, but life is still going to go on. We're still going to have other problems, and that's just added on to what we're already dealing with.
well, sometimes I make the joke. I said, I think my body hates me. It's like it's trying to kill me. We're doing this, doing that. No, let's see if we can develop something else to make her life a living hell. So, yeah. Hence the breast cancer diagnosis a few years ago. And I'm like, oh, really? Come on.
So let me ask you this, CMae. What are some of the tools that you use to occupy your mind? Because I know that, getting older in age, I'm 55 years old, and I had to do that. I lost my ability to work, and I just started to I had to figure out something to occupy my mind, being that my mobility has gotten worse in the years. What kind of tools do you use?
Well, first and foremost is a undying belief in God and Jesus. I am a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And it has helped me immensely. And I will stop and read different scriptures and things like that. But it has definitely been a big help.
I love that.
Thank you.
Are there any other kind of tools do you use?
Secondly is to appreciate the world that God has given us. Nature. I have a bird feeder out here, so I get to see a whole different birds. And my chickens live out here, and they come to my window and peck and say good morning to me sometimes. Sit out here, and every now and then I get to see a deer or a wild turkey.
Yeah.
Kind with feathers, not the other kind.
Yeah.
But I live out in the country, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
I love that, CMae. About 5 years ago, my wife and I bought a place up by the lake, just a little trailer, but we get to enjoy the lake. And I lived on the lake my whole life, and I never really, appreciated it. And then once we started going up there regularly, I fell in love with nature. I mean, it's my paradise. I go up there and watch sunsets. No sunset is the same, kind of like MS. There's no MS that's the same. And every time I see a sunset, I never realized how beautiful it is. And I appreciate nature so much more. with you with watching you got the birds. I never realized like all the nature with the Canadian geese that come in, and I watch them. You know, they do their nests when they come in the year, and then we have duck families, and we have eagles, about 5 different eagles that are up around our place. And just nature is like it's an awesome tool that I have found, you know, later in life. I didn't appreciate it when I was younger, and I appreciate it now.
I always appreciate it, but I really appreciate it now. And I forgot about the Canadian geese. They fly over here all the time too. There's a pond a couple doors down from us, so
Mm-hmm.
and they make their home there.
Man, you know, and that's just it. We got to find tools, you know. And I know other people that I've met on the TikTok community. They're huge into art, and they weren't an artist before they got their diagnosis, but they figured that out, and they just took off with it, and they create incredible pieces of art, whether it's, you know, with pencils or pen or graphic arts or whatever it is. I mean, it's just, you got to find something to occupy your mind.
Yeah. Yes, I mean that includes you could read all kinds of stuff, or for that matter, I do watch useless videos on YouTube sometimes too.
Yeah.
So, and you could burn up hours of time doing that. So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
well, I'm old. I have my TV shows I watch.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
You know, and you got to try it. Sometimes you got to think outside the box. Like I got into podcasting. Now, if you would have told me 10 years ago I was going to be doing this, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. But you know, after I lost my ability to work, and I got on TikTok, and I'm doing videos and telling people about my MS. And, you know, my daughter came up with the idea, you know, hey, Dad, why don't you try doing a podcast? And, you know, I did the research on it because I had time to do it. I didn't have a job anymore. And, you know, and here I am today. I've recorded over 120 episodes just talking to people that, you know, have this disease or have other chronic diseases, just to try to help people understand them better.
Yeah, that's a good thing, and you're doing a good job of it. And thank you.
I appreciate you. But I mean, I guess my point is that you just got to find something you have a passion for and go after it. You know, just because you have MS, life's not over. You got to figure out something else that makes you happy and just jump all over it.
There's always something out there, and you never can tell what the next day might bring.
Yeah.
You never can tell. I mean, for that matter, there could be, God willing, a cure on the horizon.
Yeah.
And maybe most of us benefit from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's my hopes. That's my prayers that they're good. Not even necessarily for me, because I'm old. I'm looking at the 7-0.
Yeah.
But for you younger people,
Right.
you know, surely there's got to be a cure out there for this.
I think it's there, you know. CMae, I was told back in 97 we're close. And, you know, I mean, it's 28 years later, but the advances that have been made are incredible. I mean, there were only 3 or 4 DMTs when I first started out. Now there's over 20, 25 of them. I don't know. I lost count. But I mean, there's so many different options, you know. There's still no cure, but I think we're getting close.
Yeah. Well, if Big Pharma releases it, because if they do release it, I think they're after customers and not cures.
I agree with that.
You know, and that could be the problem. And all this MS Society or the Cancer Society, oh, we want to cure. No, you don't. Then you'd lose their century job.
Right.
So that's just my humble opinion on it.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There's a lot of people getting rich off of chronic disease, but it's not the people that actually have them, you know. And it's just sad that there's not anything better out there for us to live a better life. You know, it's getting better, but I think that there's so much more that can be done with this disease and other diagnoses too, for that matter.
Well, I've been trying to look into gut health of all things.
Yeah.
And that might be the key to a bunch of it.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, all the old timers, really old timers, are you regular? You got to be regular.
Right.
That means are you regular? So
Right.
you poop every day. So,
Right.
and so yeah, really. But I think they might have been onto something.
I agree.
Sometimes the old ways should not be forgotten.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So let me go into your support system, because I know that that's a key part, and I know we already talked about your husband, but there's more than just the spouse, or, you know, because some people are single, some people, you know, they don't have much family. But so I just want to talk a little bit more about your support system and how how important that is to you, CMae.
Extremely important. I have my kids live far away from me, but I hear from them every day or about every day, either through text or phone calls. I have a dear, dear friend that I've been friends with for well over 50 years, and she and I talk every day. And if I fall or anything, she's got numbers of family members here that could come and get me if, God forbid, I fall.
Yeah.
I have my stepdaughter, who I dearly love, who lives behind me, and she can come here and has several times. And I have a brother-in-law who lives right next door to me. And then, of course, I have my husband too. So
Yeah. You know,
there's varied friends throughout here. So
yeah. And that is such a huge part of our journey. I know is just having that support, whether it's family or friends. I got a good group around me, and that circle was bigger early in my diagnosis. It's gotten a lot tighter. But I still know who I can count on, and I know that that is important. And even for the people that don't have that family support, I love the support that we get from each other on TikTok.
yes, most definitely. That's a very good support group. I forgot to mention them.
Yeah.
But they have been a godsend. And just sometimes, and I feel sorry for anybody who's got it worse than me, but every now and then you'll run across somebody who's got it worse than you.
Right.
And you're like, oh, dear Heavenly Father, please help them. But please help me not to get that bad. I never felt better in my life, like the old joke.
Yeah.
I feel great.
Yeah.
Feel wonderful then.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know that we get on lives together, and we have new people that come in and they're young in this disease, and I think it's valuable just hearing somebody that is older like me and you, and we've been dealing with this disease for a while, and just how we manage it, because a lot of people are scared, and I understand that scared feeling. I was 27 and you were 50 in your 50s when you got your diagnosis. And I just like the community, because that is an important part of this journey, is just having people around you that understand. And even if you have the family that are with you and supporting you, they don't get it because they don't have the disease. And having that group on TikTok that actually they're going through the similar situations, and they can bounce ideas off of us. Hey, have you ever experienced this? And get our feedback. I think that's valuable. So valuable.
Yes, most definitely. I totally agree there.
So, CMae, let me ask you, if you had to tell anybody anything that was in a similar situation as you, they're 50 plus and they're getting their diagnosis, they're just newly diagnosed, and how they need to keep on fighting, how they have to figure it out, and they can still live whatever they have left. What would your advice be to them?
Keep moving. Don't stop moving. And if you're tired, rest when you're tired, when you get to that point. But otherwise, if you're just a little bit tired, keep moving, keep doing stuff, and keep thinking. Use that mind. Try and learn a new skill, like try and get on Duolingo or something and teach yourself a foreign language.
Yeah.
Anything. Keep improving that mind. Keep the mind sharp. And try and keep that body moving. Yes, thank you.
I love that. The mind, and then I tell everybody that's the hardest part for me, is just, the mind part of it, the mental health part of it, and occupying your mind. And yeah, I totally agree with that, CMae, 100%. CMae, I really want to thank you for coming on and joining me today. I will absolutely invite you to come on in a future date, just to update us and to hear how you keep on fighting this fight. And if anybody wants to follow you on TikTok, I'll put your description in the description of the podcast. Connect with CMae. She goes by MS Granny on TikTok, and she's just hilarious. She's always cracking jokes. I love talking to her. She always lightens up the live. And I just really appreciate you, CMae, and everything that you're about. And thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me and interviewing me, and I appreciate it. And if I can help somebody with this journey, then my life is not in vain. And if I can make someone smile, all the better.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen, CMae. All right. If you want to follow CMae, I'll put all her stuff in the description. If you want to follow me on TikTok, you can find me MS Michigan Man 64. You can also find me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64, and I'm on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Share us out, subscribe, listen to our stories. We want to be understood. The best way to be understood is to listen to us talk. Till the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.